Post-draft coverage presented by Geico continues here on CBS Sports HQ as we take a look at the Charter franchises week at the draft. At number 10, relative surprise. They go tight end the way the draft breaks, but they don't go the tight end that others thought they might. It's Colston Loveland, a Michigan man, heading to Chicago. Back in studio, Ryan Wilson, Mike Renner, Joe Musso, your host, fellas. You know where I come from on this topic. I like to ask the question, push myself away from the desk, and see how you graded it out, because it looks like a couple impact players at non-positions of need early on here for the Bears, and then they address the needs later on. How'd they grade out?
Well, they didn't have a lot of needs also, though. So, like, these are kind of luxury picks, but they're not necessarily luxury picks when you think about Ben Johnson and his offense and what he wants to do. He wants guys who are flexible. He wants chess pieces. He wants guys that can line up in one spot, they shift, go to another spot, and then put you in compromising situations. That's exactly what he got in Colston Loveland and Luther Burden. After that, I don't love this draft. I gave it an A-, but those two picks I absolutely love.
Everybody else, eh?
Colston Loveland, to me, is a tight end that can play in line, and he did that well at Michigan. He just needs to get a little bit stronger. But then when he gets out wide, this guy runs routes like a wide receiver. I mean, he can truly be, if you put him one-on-one against a linebacker or safety, he's winning those routes. And then Luther Burden is the best player in this draft class with the ball in his hands at the receiver position. Slot, but he could also play running back. He could be a little Deebo Samuel role. So we got guys that are flexible now with Caleb Williams with all these weapons at his disposal. It's like Kenny King shot.
We heard some Amon-Ra St. Brown comps as we try and figure out the reconstruction of Detroit's offensive look here now in Ben Johnson's image in Chicago. Maybe Burden serves as that. Looking at Loveland, you referenced the route running, a little more fluid than a Tyler Warren. Do you think maybe that was a deciding factor in fitting him into this scheme?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Rand Carthon, our buddy, talked about this last night in terms of the comps with Sam Laporta, in terms of how Ben Johnson used him, running these little over routes and these shallows, getting him in space, misdirections, and then 40 yards later, you finally are able to catch up to him and make that play. I think that's what Colston Loveland brings you. And I'm going to trust Ben Johnson on this, even if these weren't huge, quote-unquote, needs. The offense is immeasurably better. I would imagine Caleb Williams is excited about it. The other name I mentioned on defense is Zay Frazier. I thought he would go a little bit higher than this. Feels like a Tyreek Stevenson type, so you have two long, athletic corners. As you know, Joe, that hopefully pay attention to against the Commanders. Otherwise, good young cornerbacks.
We'll see what it is for the Bears. Excitement has been there before. Results have continued.
This time's different.
You got to turn it around, and you got to get through a number of teams in a stacked NFC North. The Packers, notwithstanding, good football team, very solid in what they've presented and consistent as well. But they do something inconsistent with their draft strategy of past. That's wide receiver in the first round. What was it? The Curly Lambeau days the last time this happened, Mike? How do you like their draft?
It was 0-2, and it was Javon Walker, and that one turned out great. I think this one's going to turn out great, too.
Yeah.
Matthew Golden is a perfect fit for this Packers offense. They like full route tree runners. They like guys who can run every single position, the X, the Y, the Z. They don't want to telegraph anything by who's out there and where they're playing. That's Matthew Golden. He was the best full tree route runner in this draft class, so he makes a lot of sense, even if I don't think he's like this #1 alpha type of wide receiver that you usually see going in the first round. After that, not a lot of people may have loved Anthony Belton here in the second round. I do. Yeah. I think he adds a different element to this Packers offense and this Packers running game. He is a crushing offensive tackle. When you see him hit a deuce block there in the B gap, take a 3 technique, he can take him for a ride. This guy's powerful, 340 pounds. I think he could be their starting left tackle next season.
Oh, interesting. Not even guard. I love it. I gave it a B, and Matthew Golden, some teams had him as wide receiver 1. Joe Musso had him as wide receiver 1 as well. So I think that's real value there. You did, right?
I was a Buka Golden.
Okay.
They were. I think the point being was I wasn't as high on Tetairoa McMillan as
some teams agreed, and Golden I think has a chance to be special. Colin Oliver, I liked him a lot. He played outside Oklahoma State, had an injury, but I think he moves inside next to Edge Cooper, and I love that athleticism and versatility. And I want to ask you about this, Mike, as the Packers guru here. Savion Williams, how are you going to use him? Wide receiver, 6'5", an absolute burner, played a lot of running back later in his career at TCU.
That's the one I do not know. And he is a unique talent through and through. He's like, he's like the Deebo Samuel role type of guy. That's how he was used at TCU. I'm not saying he's going to be at the NFL level, but he's like I said, 6'4", 220+ pounds, had 50 carries last year, but also 611 receiving yards. So kind of bridges that gap to just be a weapon in that offense that, just a different kind of cat that they don't have. Maybe a Cordero Patterson type that you put in a bunch of different roles.
Josh Jacobs asked for wideouts. They got a couple of wideouts. We'll see what sort of difference that makes for Jordan Love in this passing game. Getting to Minnesota now, fellas. We got 5 picks in total, but only 3 prior to pick 200. Did they exact enough change with what they had in their pocket coming into this draft, Ryan?
I gave him a B-. And the picks they had, I liked. I love the Donovan Jackson pick. The Houston Texans were going to take him once he went 24. They traded out a pick 25. Ty Felton, incredibly productive at Maryland. 186, so he's undersized. He plays primarily outside. We'll see how he matches up against these physical corners. Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, I had him as a potential mid-day 2 guy. Ended up going mid-day 3, so that feels like a steal. And I'll just mention Kobe King. I love the way he played at Penn State. He's a physical linebacker. I think he has the ability to turn his hips and play in space, but he can certainly play coming downhill and brings that physicality that I would imagine Brian Flores is going to love.
Yeah, I'm lower on this draft. I gave it a C+. One, because the two teams, when you come with 4 picks, the least amount of picks in the entire draft class, the 2 teams behind them traded back to get a ton of picks. And you sat at 24 and you drafted a guard, which, you know, traditionally, you don't need to find guards in the first round. You can find them later, but I think Donovan Jackson's a good player. I just had him a lot lower on my draft board. He was outside my top 50. So for all those reasons, I didn't love it. Down the board, though, I agree Kobe King can be a good fit as the blitzer in this defense.
You know, a lot of people said a lot of things about the Minnesota Vikings heading into last season, so mum's the word from me until we see what they put on field once again under Kevin O'Connell. He's just squeezing the most out of his team time and again. We're going to get to Detroit finally here in the North because the personnel is still elite. When you look at the structure around it, it's changed. Both coordinators elsewhere, Ben Johnson, Chicago, Aaron Glenn with the New York Jets. Taking a look at Detroit's class, we talk about their edge being their edge, the way they play football, the way they prepare, Ryan. Is this a list of names that fits that sort of ideology?
Feels like Howie Roseman drafted all the Georgia kids, right? But it does. These are all great kids, number one, because Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell, that's where they started the conversation. Tyleik Williams is a fantastic talent who ripped his hamstring essentially at his pro day, and there's some concerns that he might go a little later. I'm fine with this pick. I absolutely love Tate Ratledge, the edge with he plays and the way he looks, the mustache and the mullet gets me going. And Mike knows I haven't quit talking about Isaac TeSlaa since he transferred from Hillsdale to Arkansas. Big 6'4", big slot. He can run, and I think he's going to be absolutely dynamic if you get him on the field with J-Mo and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Laporta and Jahmyr Gibbs, excuse me. It feels like it won't make up for the loss of the offensive coordinator, but it gets you where you need to go. And then Dan Jackson's a fantastic special teamer late on day 3.
Yeah, I didn't love this draft. I went B- because top 3 picks, I had 20 or so spots lower on my board than where they came off the board. I'm not saying Tyleik Williams is a bad player. He's just kind of a 2-down nose tackle type. For Detroit, didn't have a lot of needs. Maybe that's why they wanted to attack that. But I will say, going down the board, I love Miles Frazier. This guy was a top 75 player for me, the LSU guard. I had him higher than Tate Ratledge, who went in the 2nd round. Miles Frazier falls to the 5th. You're going to have that competition, probably at left guard position in Detroit this season. Wouldn't surprise me if Miles Frazier wins that.
All right, so some value there as we take a look now at your odds to win the North. It's been a Detroit run lately, plus 125.
Disrespectful to your Bears.
Mike's Packers, plus 270. The Vikings, who were, I believe, preseason last in the odds last season and rattled off all those wins. That's where we find the Bears, but still shorter than 5-1 odds in a competitive division in the North.